Here we are, another episode of the next round. We've got Jenz. We have the Jenz here.
That's cool.
Mr. Momentous Man, founder of Momentum. If you are not aware, overall, all around good dude. So,
thank you.
thanks for
Happy to
being
be
here.
here. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Super cool.
it's been a minute in the making.
I think you're the only guy I've never seen sad. Ever. Ever.
So our goal is to see Jenz sad today. So
I'm gonna
Good
walk
goal.
out here
Yep.
super sad. I'm depressed.
If
I get sad.
if you're not aware of who Jenz is or what he does, give us a little intro. Help those out there that have not heard.
Yeah.
Shed some
Well,
light.
first of all, I mean it's a blessing and an honor to be with you two, and known each of you for a while now in different various parts of your career and in my career too. And so it's cool to be here at this time when Sequify is in such a cool place, and affecting a lot of people in a really impactful way. As far as myself, founder of Momentum. We do performance psychology in the door-to-door space and direct sales space. We also have a men's psychology portion of Momentum. But most pertinent to this is our door-to-door and corporate side of performance psychology. We do everything from the culture side, retention side, and then the actual one-on-one sessions. Provide companies and individuals with performance psychology coaches that help them get the most out of their mind to their heart on the doors and in their life.
Love it. I feel like, I mean, I haven't knocked in 7 years now, but I was joking with Ross this morning. My very first summer, second day out there, literally remember being in a porta potty, crying on the phone with my parents, like trying to figure out what do I do, how do I get out of this.
Mhm.
And back then, I mean, super grateful for the advice I got. It was like, yeah, just put your head down and keep going. I didn't know that there was actual like help that I could have sought out there. So really grateful for the stuff that you and your team do.
Yeah.
I feel like the space has evolved and kind of gotten out of that, like just go pound the pavement, you'll get over it type thing. Like actually acknowledge what's going on, actually figuring these things out. So yeah, super appreciative of what you do for a lot of the guys out there. It's great.
Yeah, of course. I definitely think like there is a little bit of a movement, and it's definitely evolving. I feel like it's still majority of the door-to-door space is still like the raw motivation, watch a TED Talk or YouTube video or do some chants and correlation and go out there and hit as hard as you can, drink a bucked up or whatever. But then you get 2 weeks in or 2 months in and 100 doors in or whatever, and unless you have the skills, it'll all run out. Between skills and meaning, you put yourself in a really good spot. But those calls, that's what our team takes. That's what we do. We have our coaches are open to anytime calls, and that's when our coaches get calls is when people are at the 7-Eleven or their girlfriend just broke up with him mid knocking doors or on the porta potty, hiding like whatever it is, like thinking I can't do it anymore. And there's opportunities to learn there, and it's cool. I think that there's a lot of impact that's had in somebody that would have gone home, that would have stopped. And you think of the amount of customers that they help, the remaining time of that year, the time they stay in the door-to-door space, because of those new skills, and also the money that they make and the impact they make on themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, I look back at it and I would not be here, right, if I didn't kind of push through that stuff. So just like you're saying, having the ability to overcome and continue on for themselves, for their teams, for the homeowners, for, their families, for everything at the impact. So, I mean, first, like real big question, what drew you to want to get into this of all industries? Because your background was not knocking doors. You didn't come directly from the space. So what kind of called to you? What brought you into, the door-to-door home service space?
Yeah, it's a really good question. there's a reason why and maybe we'll get into it, but from the personal sense, why I was drawn into the psychology side, because to your point, my background was corporate, Goldman Sachs, and then sales and marketing, and had an undergrad in business, eventually a master's in business, and that was kind of my focus. And then I had personal stuff that brought into the psychology space. But I think I was working with student athletes before, and had started to I started with high school athletes and then grew to collegiate athletes, and that's where I got my MBA. It was University of Tennessee, and I was working with collegiate athletes there. But it was during my MBA when I was like, man, I really feel like there could be a massive impact with this stuff in the corporate world. And I grew up in Utah with a bunch of friends getting recruited every summer to try to get me to go out and sell door to door. And I just thought, man, that would be such a massive impact, because at that time I couldn't imagine how difficult that would be to go out for 4 months, let alone those that are doing it year round. That I was like, man, there has to be such a need. So I flew from Tennessee out to Utah, got a car from my brother's land that hadn't ran in 2 years, fixed it up, and drove up and down the state of Utah for about a month, just meeting with any door-to-door leader that would listen to my idea. Walked away with the first client from there, and then just grown from there. So I think getting into it, I saw a lot of young and hungry people that wanted to go and make something of themselves, and a massive opportunity to fill a void that hadn't been filled. There was a massive need and massive impact that could be done.
I think what you do is also, I think, so needed everywhere, irrespective of the industry, because I don't think I've actually never been to a therapy before. I think I joined some of the sessions with you. And for me, therapy was such an uneducated topic, because I don't really know what that means. And as I learned about every high performing individual has to go through these emotions and has to go through this process of really understanding what they want to do, that what you do, it really has more deeper meaning than people understand. And I think door-to-door is probably just a stepping stone, I'm assuming, for what he can even provide, because that's a more direct consequence of what they really need. But besides that, from corporate world you came from, do you think that's something which is being done in corporate side besides door-to-door? Is that still very unexplored?
I mean, largely very, very unexplored. I think there's a lot of companies that will provide, you have a lot of companies that will provide some, very few, but some will even provide on-site therapists. That's super rare. More common is hey, part of your insurance will cover therapy for you, right? And then even more common is that's not part of your plan, or and so I think there's still a little bit of a disconnect of seeing how, when somebody is in a really skillful and sound mental and emotional space, how that impacts their day-to-day at their job, and how their performance increases, their retention increases, all of that, because it's really hard to directly correlate that in a quantitative manner with numbers to the bottom line. I think that's what trips up a lot of executives with bringing that kind of stuff in, which we've tried to really quantify, and bring in and have stats to show. But I think that's probably why there's the big gap with that. But it is so needed in every space. We're all human. We all go through crap. Majority of us really like to just shut our emotions off and go to work, but eventually it'll catch up to you. Eventually, there's a thing in psychology called amplification. Essentially, the more you suppress something, the louder it'll get. Eventually, it'll force you to listen. Eventually, it'll show up in anxiety or addiction or depression or hopelessness or burnout or whatever. But eventually, it'll force you to listen. So you choose your hard. You can either choose the hard of having it force you to listen, or going to therapy or getting a coach or whatever it is, and learning up front, where that's difficult too. It's hard to take time off. It's hard to make time to do that. It's hard to unearth some things that we never want to talk about or think about again. But either way, eventually it'll come up in some shape, way, or form.
Yeah. It's like you said, choose your hard. Is it now or is it then?
Yeah.
The That's one thing specifically that you mentioned that I'd love to kind of dig a little bit deeper on. You know, most of the other people we've had on the podcast, it's, you know, how did you scale your business? You went from this to this in revenue, and, you know, what's the average or the per rep average, and what's the monetary side. So I'd love to just see how you guys have done the statistical side of it.
Yeah.
Whether it is, you know, overall improvement, whether it's, I mean, like what are the things that you can measure?
Yeah.
And how have you seen companies adapt to, maybe they never thought about it before. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't think that was like a KPI I should be tracking or even thinking about it, but obviously you can see the increase in performance. So what have you guys kind of come up with?
Yeah. So at the very beginning of everything, like I had this quote that I would, in every workshop or pitch or whatever, I'd always say, you know, like that when you increase the mental and emotional ability of an individual, you increase the overall performance of the individual. The overall performance meaning the performance at home, the performance in their personal life with their friends and family, in their community, and also at their job, and kind of came to the point of like, well, I can tell business owners that your people will be happier and they'll feel more fulfilled. There is an element of the bottom line. Like it has to paper, it has to make sense. And so pretty quick, we would, with majority of our clients, we would gauge how much that they had sold in a certain span of time, and then track from their first session to second to third to fourth to 20th, and see the increase of what did their production do. Trying to like take in all the variables and control certain things of like time of season, because if selling for solar, if you're selling in December, for pest, you're not selling in December, right? So you can meet 1,500 times and you're still not going to sell a count as you're not in area, right? Or you could sell a ton and not meet at all, but you're in July, so you're selling a lot because it's pest control and it's July. So we would do a lot of that, and we would just gauge different numbers like that, and still do, right? I'm trying to think, I just was going over some of a couple months ago of one of our clients, of their people over last summer, or over the year actually, and found that about 75% of their people after 4 sessions would sell, this is solar, anywhere from 1 to 4 more accounts a week.
Wow.
After meeting 4 more times. So that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
1 to 4 accounts a week in solar.
Huge. That's worth a lot more time and capital for everyone.
And I think the thing, like, I knew coming to the space it would help performance, because I had seen it in athletes. I'd seen it myself in my own sales job when I went through my rock bottom and learned and saw, like, going from being a really, really good rep to breaking records in the company that I was in. So I knew it would help with performance. But one of my favorite stats, because I think this is one of the hardest things to do in the door-to-door world, is retention. When a company provides this kind of service and kind of investment in their reps don't leave. Their reps stay around.
On that part, because you work with tons of different individuals, from executives to business owners to sales reps, and most of them are probably doing some form of sales, if that's directly in the field, if that's managing a team, or if that's running the business. What is a common, I guess, experience or thing they're struggling with you see across all those conversations? Because I imagine it's probably very diverse, but is there a common thing you run across, saying like anyone who's performing really well, really high, is going to hit this wall, or I don't know how exactly that's examined. So
I think it manifests itself in like obviously thousands and thousands of different ways of how people cope with certain things, but I've really come to believe that the number one, like the secret to being a high performer in life and in business, is self-security. And then all the array of issues like are usually rooted in a lack of self-security, whether that's self-worth or how I view myself, how I talk to myself, things that are going on in my home life between my spouse or my kids, the way that I say yes all the time when I probably should say no, or I say no too much when I maybe should say yes. I'm scared to like take the next leap in my business, whatever it is. I think that one of the number one issues if not the issue and bottom line, is self-security. When somebody's secure with themselves, they can be yelled off a porch and be like, dang, that kind of stung, but I'm good. I know who I am next door, right? Or, man, I just had a massive network recruited from me. That really sucks. That stings. Also, like, I'm Jenz. I can figure this out, right? It's not a false sense of security. Like, you think about the typical door-to-door bro. That alone is a massive lack of self-security, because you're having to get the cars and the money and the partying and all that to make it look like you are more than you are, because you're not able just to be you. You have to pose in certain ways.
Yeah.
So I think all across the board, from executive, which most of my, like, the sessions I do now are from, you know, the C-suite and executive level, all the way down to where I started. What my coaches do a lot of is like the manager and rep. Self-security. It's all self-security.
Yeah, because it's the tying your worth to an outcome of, if I don't sell, if I don't recruit, if I don't grow, if I do, awesome, I'm the winner. And all of my efforts are reflected on just that thing. But then also the opposite then becomes true in that circumstance.
Yeah.
Instead of tying it to the effort, or tying it to, like you're saying, the self-worth and the self-identity of, it is my actions, it's the things that I'm in control of that determine what I am good at, not the outcome that other people come in.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the personal, maybe something personally I feel like I'd struggled with before. But in terms of compartmentalizing your personal life versus work life, and especially if you have very ambitious goals and you're trying to achieve things you need to achieve in your professional career, and it does take a lot of compromise from your personal career, do you think there is a way to balance that out, or it is one of those things where you have to really mentally work through it?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a great amount of skill to navigate. Again, like we said, you have to be a little bit obsessed, right? Like, there is an obsession part of it, and if you're not, it's just not going to come to fruition. I think a huge skill and a massive thing that's really important to bring in is the idea of, like, those that matter most to you in your life. If you're a single dude or single girl, like, whatever, like, yes, take care of yourself, have connection with people. Don't just, lock in your basement and, like, go and do whatever, all that. But especially if you're in a relationship or you have kids or whatever, communication is massive in that. And with that said, it's not about necessarily quantity, but quality. Right? A lot of studies show that as long as a child or a spouse knows that there's at least some time every day, even if it's 15 minutes, but they know they can expect it, and some activity every week that they can look forward to be with you, that increases relationship satisfaction way more than just quantity of time. So as long as it's really intentional, that's huge. Right? That intentionality is massive. And I don't know if this is where you're going with it, but then there's the question of, like, would great things happen if people didn't sacrifice everything, right?
Right.
And I'm a huge believer of yes. And I think, in a sense, it could, even if it took a little bit longer, which I don't know if it would, I think those people would be in a better place, better mindset, and, all of that at the end of it, and be able to help even more people than had they, done it maybe the way that they did it. So I think there has to be obsession, but you can't tell me you can't spend 15 minutes or 20 minutes with a significant other in a day. And then that significant other also has to buy in of, like, hey, I'm going to go try to change the world. Are you okay with this? And if they're not, then there's a decision to be made,
Yeah. I love, I really like what you said, because I compared to, Gary Vee, for example. He's always out there and he's like, you're 38 years old. You're 45 years old. Like, you still have time. Don't, we're such in a generation of instant gratification. I'm not the 18-year-old that sold a company and made billions of dollars. Like, are there those individuals out there? Awesome. Right? They've done those things, and you know, like you kind of look back and you're like, oh, well, now you're trying to mend a relationship or now you're doing other things. That's where I love, you know, it's really, it's all about the intention.
Yeah.
It's all about can I just set aside the quality time to do the things that I need to? And if it takes a little bit longer, cool. But it's also like, I mean, one of the things I look at is, you know, when building a business, don't you want to do it with people that you like?
Yeah.
Instead of just, like you said, locking yourself in the basement and like, oh, I'm going to go accomplish this in 3 months.
Yeah.
If it takes a year, but you're doing it with cool people and you enjoy that process and you can have your family around you and you can be more involved, like it just accentuates the runway and better outcomes all around, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So help us understand what, you know, what can people be doing to specifically hone in on the intention during the quality time? You know, how, I mean, like tactical advice, getting rid of distractions, something that somebody could go like put into play right now. Hey, maybe my relationship isn't the best. Maybe I need to be focusing more on something versus the other thing. Like, what are some kind of tips, tricks you can give?
Yeah, first things first, I would say, like, we are responsible for taking care of ourselves. It's nobody else's responsibility. So take care of yourself first. A lot of people feel like that's selfish. A lot of people feel guilty, right? Like, we do a lot of men's programs, and I have a lot of men that we start with like a retreat on one of our programs, and a lot of men feel guilty taking time away from their spouse who's been home with the kids all week, and now it's like, oh, I'm not going to be here for the next 2 days or 2.5 days or 3 days. Like that you feel really guilty. But what happens when that man comes home after 3 days of filling his own cup? He's a better husband, he's a better father, he's a better businessman, he's a better, you know, partner across the board. So the first thing is find things that you love to do, that you did as a kid, as a teenager, early adult, and do them. A lot of times we get in like the rat race or like the TikTok of like, don't waste any time, get off video games, no, like don't take a nap, like whatever it is. When all reality, the most productive thing you might do in your day could be taking 30 minutes or 60 minutes and playing Fortnite with your friends, because you're filling your cup, right? That can go to the extreme, and we all know and have all been there, right? We're like 24 hours in with Mountain Dew and Doritos, like playing Fortnite. We're like, okay. But there's a huge need for us to be filling our cups, and it can be something bigger or really small. But if we're not filling, you can't pour from an empty cup. And when we try to pour from an empty cup, that's when burnout, resentment, especially resentment, starts to build, because we're not taking care of ourselves. So practical solution and skill is find things that you can do for you, that you love to do, that help you come alive. People a lot of times say, well, like, I go to the gym. I'm like, bro, I don't care who you are. Going to the gym doesn't make you like come alive. I know some people say like it's a happy place or it's my therapy. It ain't therapy, for one thing, because your issues are still the same, right? It is massively helpful, and it can help in so many different things with your mental health. But find something to help you that causes you to come alive, whatever that might be. And the second thing is back to the intentional side. We do a lot of things, but we do them without intention that could actually be a cup filler for ourselves. For example, there's this study. There was a group, or a study group, that took 2 different groups of people that had thoracic surgery, which is really invasive surgery. They had one group during recovery receive certain drugs for recovery and pain, like morphine and stuff like that, and they had that administered at night while they were asleep. They had the other group, they had the doctor approach the bedside of each patient, walk them through what drug they were receiving, what the benefits were going to be, what they should expect, all of that, and made it intentionally known to this group of people. And they went through the months of recovery, and when they recovered, they took pain tolerance and recovery speed and all of that. The people that knew what they were receiving and it was really intentionally administered recovered at an exponentially faster rate, and their pain was exponentially lower. And so there might be things, you might take a shower every day. Before you step in the shower, tap your heart and be like, this is for me. Like I'm filling my cup. I'm going to take this time, just totally decompress. You might listen to music on the way to work. Take some time, tap yourself on the heart, be like, I'm going to listen to my favorite music to fill my own cup on my way to work. The intentionality, it's the same action, but the intentionality behind it can change how your nervous system views it and takes it in and fills your own cup with it.
I love that. You mentioned you guys do retreats. You got to take care of yourself, take a couple steps away. What are some of the things that people can do post retreat? Or I guess another way to phrase it is without having to leave every, month because I need another retreat. What can I be doing during the off times?
Yeah.
To kind of like tap back into it, to be able to follow up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we get lost in a trap of a lot of times thinking that events last for a lifetime when they don't. We've all been to like that motivational speech or whatever. We feel stoked and feel like we're going to take over the world, and the day later it's like it's gone. That's why a lot of like what we do on our retreats, there's always an integration period. There's always follow up after the retreat because it's about the process. I always said, and all my coaches, we adhere to, if we're doing our job, eventually we should be fired. Because we're providing the skill, we're helping somebody walk through it, they're taking the skill and implementing to their life. And now they don't need us every week. They don't need us every other week. Maybe like a maintenance monthly or quarterly or whatever, right? But like when I went through my own personal rock bottom, I was meeting with couples therapist, addiction therapist, personal therapist, and group every week. I don't do that anymore. It's not because I'm not as dedicated, but it's because I learned skills that I've leveled up from that. And so I think the main thing is if you go to a conference, you go to a retreat, whatever it is, find a practical skill that you can implement. If it's just a shift of thinking, that can help. But I promise you, your brain is wired to how the last 20 years have gone, not the last 20 minutes. So it's going to take some sort of practical skill to help you build and get there. And that's how you create lasting change, not an event, but a process.
When you go talk to all these individuals or even companies, how do you identify like what do you need to focus on? Like what are things which are visible versus like things you just have to experience through?
Yeah. I mean, we all got crap, so that's pretty easy. Like, I don't care who you are. My favorite is when somebody walks in and be like, I had a really good childhood. Seriously, nothing to complain about. The best childhood anybody could ever ask for. I ask 3 questions and they're like bawling, like, my dad doesn't love me. But it's because we're raised with imperfect people, and we have imperfect people along the way, that no matter how good and incredible they are, there's always things that they miss. That's, my wife and I don't have kids yet, but that's what we always say. We're going to do our very freaking best with our children, and then we're going to send them to therapy. Like that's the way that it is. Like we had those missed things. And there was a time period when I first started to build the company that I was traveling to 1 to 4 companies a week, traveling 20 to 28 days out of the month, every month for 2 years straight. Being inside the doors of every door-to-door product you could think of. And it's really interesting. I think there's an aspect of being human where we all suffer similarly. We all celebrate similarly. And so a lot of the messaging it might be tweaked here and there and said in a different way, but the roots of it is the same. Like we're all human. And I think that's one of the biggest realizations that can help all of us, is like, no matter what, you're never alone. No matter what you're going through, even if you're building a business or you're going through relationship struggles or whatever, there are 7+ billion people in this world. You can't tell me that you're that special to be the only one that's going through it. You're special. right? But you're not so unique in that somebody hasn't gone through what you've gone through and overcome it. And so I think to answer your question, we all are human, have this common humanity, and we're all struggling similarly.
What's next for you? What's kind of on the roadmap for momentum? I mean, like you said, you no longer doing the 20 plus days of travel. You've, obviously built up a great business, been to a lot of conferences. I feel like a lot of people know your name, and either have received the benefit of it or, or at least a little bit more aware of it. What are you guys looking to grow and accomplish?
Yeah. I think why anybody gets into any kind of business is money. No, just kidding. No, it's impact, right? Like, is the impact of we want to change the world with the ideas that we have that are closest to our heart. And I think that's what it is. I think we'll continue to grow in the direct sales space. Like Roshan said, there's a need well beyond the door-to-door space. We've supported dozens of organizations and thousands of door-to-door reps to this point, and we continue to grow that in a meaningful way. And on our men's psychology side, just continue to help men understand that they're not alone, and they can cry and still be a man, and they can share their voice and be a lover and a fighter. And I think the goal is just like everybody else that's in business, is trying to increase the impact that we have on this world and the things that matter most to us.
Love it, man. Well, you're the man.
Thanks for doing what you do, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it does help a lot to a lot of people. So,
well,
yeah.
Thanks for doing what you do. Thank you for that. And thank you for doing what you do, because same thing. You help people.
Yep. Appreciate you, dude.
Appreciate y'all.